Aguilar, principal consultant at Secure Networks and a code witch at biohacking. So, here he is.
Cool, thank you. Thanks everybody. My name is Michael Aguilar. I'm actually work with Secure Works. I'm a principal consultant. I work on the adversary simulation team, doing all kinds of things, red team, emulations, simulations. I break into medical devices. I got like 8 CDs against like medical devices, networks, web, whatever. I like to kind of broaden my horizons and kind of learn everything. So again, gonna kind of move fast. So we're going to cover kind of a few things, kind of what a full scope simulation and emulation is and kind of how we use those in our workflow. Basically, I'm going to go over how we use smart workflow to make better decisions on the things we bring on site, kind of reduces carry. Go over some social engineering, kind of things that I use in the field when I go and I assess physical securities for corporations. And then some of the tools that I use. Again, as you see up here, there's a lot of breaking and entering tools that we use in the field. These are things that I basically use all the time when I'm trying to break into a building. And also, again, once we get into the building, then what do you do to expand your realm in the digital sense and kind of also rain hell on the network? And also, again, hopefully we'll have time for some question and answer. So, what is a adversary simulation and emulation? Again, Philip had talked about this earlier. Again, our goal is to try to emulate a particular threat. If we're going with an emulation or with a simulation, which would kind of be the worst case scenario, it's freeform and we do whatever we can to fly under the radar and lack attribution back to us. Again, only a few people know about these things. Even with the physical security engagements, only a few people actually know about them. And again, that's where the letters of authorization kind of come into play to make sure that if we do get caught, we do have some kind of form to say that we are supposed to be in this building. But again, we're going to be focusing on the physical portion, which is one of my favorite things to do when we actually have these come in as an offering. So overall, again, these assessments help to kind of try to make sure that your topography is going to be safe from external breach. Again, as Philip had touched on, also being in the physical realm is becoming more and more prevalent. This leads to things like malware drops, certain other things that we can do in the physical sense to gain access to your digital realm. So the first thing we're going to kind of cover is smart workflow and kind of how I use that in my engagements to prime what I'm going to be doing in the field when I actively engage. So in the beginning, OSINT. You're going to be using a lot of this. Again, as soon as I find out a target, I am looking up things about them as soon as I know their name, a domain, or where they live, work, that kind of thing. I need to follow people, places, and things. So this is a lot of objects and a lot of things you need to categorize and keep track of. Data is key. The more you know about a target, the more you can actually understand a target, the more believable you will be in this engagement when you actually have to get into the building and maybe possibly questioned, which has happened many a time, and no time I've actually been stopped and detained. Everybody just kind of lets me go and do my thing. Again, mentioned it, you will need a letter of authorization. I keep 3 on me just in case I'm tackled on the front, the back, or the side. They're all located all over my person, so anybody can grab in any pocket and find some kind of letter saying I'm supposed to be there. Again, you're going to be doing a lot of OSINT. You're going to be looking at a lot of images. Google Maps is one of my favorite things. It is it is like my man on the ground who is doing my footwork for me. Because it means that there's a lot of pictures that I don't have to take, and they're taken in high definition and in lovely views and with surrounding graphics and all the things that I need. So, one of the things we do is building recon. As soon as we look at a building, we're starting to assess a lot of aspects of the building. Things like entrances, exits. Like that exit has like certain fire features that need to be in place because of fire safety laws. These are the things that we actually target. So here is something you see in Google Maps. Now in here, you see a lot of things. This shows what? Again, you see a possible key box located within the entry. You see a standard HID badge. Because of the shape and because of the size and because of the color, I know exactly what kind of badges they're using. They're using either a 26, a 37, or a little bit more bit kind of badge. It's going to be a standard HID badge, low frequency, easy to read. So also, again, knowing your badge types will help you reduce and kind of maintain the amount of gear that you need to bring into the field. So as you see here, This is a giant badge reader. I carry this like in my persons around the perimeter when I'm going to go try to hunt for badges before I try to make an entry. There's two ways of making an entry, nice and clean with the badge or the break and enter. I prefer the nice and clean, but again, we have used the latter. Again, knowing the shapes and sizes of these kinds of things is key. On the perimeter of the building, if you see something like this is an I-Class SE reader. This means that they're using I-Class badges. Those are high frequency. That's a different type of reader. So that's going to mean I need different cards. Now, also this being multi-class means that it actually is vulnerable to a downgrade attack. I can use a hotel card and rewrite it if it has a magic bit that you can overwrite. But again, that's a little bit more complicated with regards to the key types. But knowing these kinds of things is indicative. Also, with Indala, there's a nice red eye in the middle. That is an Indala reader. Again, that's an that is a low frequency reader, but of a different type. Again, these are all images that are captured on Google Earth, so I don't have to walk around the perimeter getting them before I get on site, though we do walk around quite a bit. Also, your doors. We look at your doors constantly. As you saw back there in that image, the first one, again, the door type is showing that there is a latch guard, so that means that I can't stick a jimmy tool behind there and actually pull open the door if there was something that I could actually get a hold of. Now, knowing these kinds of doors, and if you see these kinds of things, this would tell me that I need to bring a crash bar tool, stick something into the middle. If there's no steel bar in the middle to protect it, then you turn to the side and pull, and then basically these doors will open. It's a fire safety thing, but these are the kinds of things that we target. Also, request to exit sensors. These are things that you see when you walk out of a building. You walk out of a building and you hear that click. That means that the request to exit is letting you out. Sometimes that door is locked. When you hear that rec sensor goes off, that means that it's unlatching the lock. Now this works off of infrared. Infrared is based off of heat signatures. Heat signatures means that anytime the ambient temperature changes in a room, the door will open. Likewise, on the perimeter, if you can stick something through that door and get the differential to change, any kind of aerosolized thing, canned air, which is one of my favorite fens in these kinds of engagements. Also, water, you just stick it in your mouth, spit it through the door, it will change the temperature of that room. And if that sensor is placed in the wrong area, the door is open and it's easy peasy. Cameras. Don't look at them, okay? Now, a lot of times when we're going on site, it's hard to determine where these things are. This is where we use our Google Images to try to map out the entirety of the building, the perimeter, before we actually get on site. That way we're not walking by trying to look around and looking at cameras. Now also, sometimes we don't know where things are. So when we do need to go walk around, how do you kind of walk around and look inconspicuous and have a recording going at the same time? Anybody see anything going on here that's recording? Exactly. It's easy to have a conversation with somebody that's not there and fictitiously get all the information you need while recording on the other side, which is something we do quite consistently walking through your perimeter. And a lot of times people won't have any kind of notice of what? You're just another person having a conversation in an area. Everybody does it. We all talk on the phone. Next, the people. Again, you're going to have to try to enter this building at some point, when you obviously get some idea of what you're going after, and that normally is going to be your badges. I'm a big fan of badges. I actually have a lot of them I've made over my career. Some of them more professional than others, but honestly, a lot of them, if you see here, are made with something very simple, which is actually a selfie photo printer, those little tiny ones. Those have a lovely, print method that is similar to the very high-end badge printers. So we just take an actual photo, print it out, and then use glue and a roller in kind of an arts and crafts day at the hotel once we get an idea of what the badge looks like, and then we make them. But the best part about OSINT is that a lot of times people put their badges on for free. Now, the badge does also not need to work at this point. Sometimes you can get in with just a badge that looks, kind of passable and just kind of walk in and then hope you can get into some other area and get some other kind of access. But I like to kind of have them working. But again, also, this is when you start wanting to become familiar with people. So we're doing a lot of recon. We're sitting in the parking lot. We have eyes on you. One of the things that I actually have here is a nice drop cam. These things are magnetic, and a lot of times people don't notice if they're spray painted appropriately and placed in bushes with a MiFi device and a battery pack. So basically, it's completely autonomous, and we have these things watching your perimeter at all times. So we see when you leave, when you exit, when you come back, when the guards stop, what times they move around, what their shifts are, what they touch, and various other things, and they're all reporting back to us because nobody looks at something that's marked with their own Wi-Fi with an extra space in the middle of the name. But a lot of times, through OSINT, we'll find people's badges online. Now, unfortunately, if anybody works for Microsoft, it wasn't on purpose, but necessarily everybody's like, oh, this is my badge, this is my last day. Which is cool because, you get the clout, but unfortunately, we get a badge image for free. Now, the other thing is your Facebooks. A lot of times, corporations will have lovely Facebooks of corporate gatherings, and everybody's gathered around with their badges on at a Christmas party. So we look for these kinds of images, and then that's when we have arts and crafts time. So we'll go back and try to make a badge that has the appropriate, high frequency and low frequency badging, technique. And then we'll go back and then we'll make some of your badges so we can go back on site and look professional. Now, this is where things kind of get tricky because obviously you're going to need to get close enough to get a scan. Now, as you see here, these badge cloners are garage door badge cloners that we've retrofitted with two things. One of them being an ESP key, which is a small ESP device that lets me actually get the badge reads. As soon as they're read, I can see it on my phone. It stands up with Wi-Fi so I can actually see it. You can also implant them in your doors. So on your perimeter, I can actually open it up, put this in the middle of it, and then allow it to read and then also replay. So if I see somebody whose badge goes in, it's go, and it lets me in. But again, we use those within these to kind of get close to people. But the problem is that you need to get close to people. So how do you pick your target? Now, some people walk around with the badge kind of hanging out. You ever seen people like that have that little lanyard thing? Now, we've done this before in a bump. You bump somebody on one side in the crowded area, pick on the other. And as long as you have kind of on the outside, you can kind of get that badge, pull it up, and, have it secured, and you can pull it away from the person. Problem is, that means that you might actually get caught, and you may have to pull a letter. I like to get it through scanning, which means that I have to get close to people. I kind of have to do something sometimes. Sometimes it's reciprocation, sometimes it's other. But we're going to cover a little bit of social engineering on how to get that. Now again, social engineering is a manipulation of some kind of social construct to get what you want. You all came here and you're all smiling and you're all happy and stuff. But again, it's reading the room, seeing social cues, that kind of thing. Who's going to be a good target? Who's going to be a bad target? Who would be somebody you would not want to interact with? Who would be somebody that you would interact with? That kind of thing. So the thing that I look for when I do phishing techniques and phishing engagements and any kind of interaction with people is the eyes. I'm reading the eyes. I like to read micro-expressions. Now, Dr. Paul Ekman did a study, and he works in this kind of realm with psychology, but one of the things that he does is the study of micro-expressions. Now, if you look at this example right here, it has 4 faces. Now again, these faces all have similar traits and similar things, but one of them is actually the expression for anger. Okay? Now, out of these 4, who can guess the one for anger? And throw it out. Alright, I hear a lot of C's, and I heard 1 A. And I hear a D. Alright, we'll go over it. Alright. People who have said C. Alright, that's actually disgust. Reason being is the raised nose, the nostrils, things like that. You can see that because the curled mouth, it's like almost like a smell, that kind of thing. So that's labeled as disgust. This guy is more in shock. He is contempt, but this is anger. The reason being is you can tell with the pursed lips. You can tell with the eyes focused, the nose. How the nostrils are sunken in. These are things you have to read within about a quarter of a second to be able to determine if this person is going to be viable for social engineering or not. So this is why why I wear glasses inside. Why a lot of my pictures have glasses on, because I do not want to get reads. Has anybody worked for any kind of government thing where you had to take a picture for a CAC? They tell you, smile or anything? No, you have to sit there blank-faced. Reason being is you want to be read. Now, again, what I look for is the kind eyes in the room. So I'm looking for the person who smiles, the person who has those lifted features, and those are normally who, again, I get to click on my phishing links. I am pretty successful in this. Like you, I would probably walk up to you and have a conversation with you, and then I would use one of my go-tos, which I've kind of covered here. So my go-to method is kind of like, once you interact and start interacting with somebody, you build a rapport and that kind of thing. Like say I offer you a gum, or say like if you smoke, or go in the back and say you're a smoker, I carry gum, cigarettes, and a lighter. If you need a cigarette, I have it. If you don't smoke, I got gum. And guess what? If you need a light, I got that too. But that means that basically I've done something for you, and now you need to do something for me. So when we're walking away or doing something, I have like a little rock that I'll put in like my shoe, just a little pebble, okay? Walk around normally, nice loafers and stuff. You're walking around, you're just like, oh, you're talking with this person. Can you hold this bag real quick? With a cloner? Just hold this real quick, I get this out of my shoe, and I'll see your badge, and I'll kind of kindly place it over to your badge, and you hold it like this, and it's reading all day long, and so I know that when we go back and after arts and crafts time, we're going to have a valid badge. But what I've done there is I've framed something. I said, hey, can you hold this for a second while I get something out of my shoe? Now the ask is small, the task time is minimal, we've already interacted, I've done something for you, and now you feel compelled to do something for me. Tit for tat. But again, you have to have this planned. And I look for those kind eyes. Because I do not want to have the person, hey, can you hold this? No. It's kind of awkward, and then your face is already burned, because you only have one face. Now, during COVID, you had maybe 2 or 3. Because you could go in with a mask and a hat, go out without, but you got one face, so try to use it wisely. So again, inside the bag, we'll normally carry one of our HID readers. These things are, again, very cozy, and they will read from about 3 feet. They're meant for garage doors. So, when you go up to the garage door and you badge in, that's what it is. Now, our more succinct units, as shown here, have everything all in one. So we can easily package up. Hold on one second. So these lovely delivery services, DoorDash and Amazon, let you kind of get within the perimeter of a building very easily. You carry a bag, they let you in. This guy lets you get within about an arm's length of the person, just enough to be able to read the badge. So wrap this up in a bubble wrap, get just close enough, you hand the person the badge reader, because you see the badge on them. As long as they're holding it, they're getting read, and then oops, wrong address when you take the picture. Sorry, can I have that parcel back? Let me go get the one out of the car. And then you're out. Then you go back at night and ransack the place. Anyways. Alright, so again, if you're following along, what we would have is we basically have a roadmap of who we have. We have targets now that we identify, people within the building. We have a valid badge. We have an ideas of the perimeter. We know what kind of tools we should bring, so we can kind of start limiting what physical tools we actually need to assess the building. Now, if you're good and you can actually get within inside the building, then maybe you can see within inside an office, and you can see what kind of doors they have. This would also determine if you need to bring an under the door tool and how viable it would be, or say a borescope camera, some other things that you may need to go inside and laterally move within the facility. So sadly, there's no thing, but he's just doing the guns, lots of guns thing, and then that's kind of leading into the tools that we use. So again, I don't want to bring all of this with me into a building. I just want to bring a couple things. So normally when I go with lockpicks, I only bring a few lockpicks. I bring a couple rakes, I bring a diamond tip, and I bring a single pin, and I'll bring about 3 different torsion wrenches, and that's it. I don't want to be messing with locks all day, and the worst part is if you try to make a lot of noise in an empty office building and say there's a guard walking around, it sounds kind of suspicious when you're shh, and nobody's supposed to be there. I do bring a shove knife. That's an easy entry tool for some of these doors. If you can loiter it, you can kind of use an air gap to create a wedge. Create the wedge, and then you can kind of slide that in, pull the thing out, and then pop the door open from the rear using that little hook on the other side. Sometimes, again, you'll see doors on the perimeter. They just are flat, and they will not have any kind of door knob going in. It's just an exit out. Those with 2 also viable for the fireman tool on the outside. Also, there's bypass tools. Again, there's the American bypass tool, some brakes for some really crappy kind of locks. Those are quick wins, again, for perimeters. Normally you see those on things like fences and gated fences and things like that. But again, one big thing is to know your legal laws before traveling with lockpicks. I have made several ventures just normally traveling, and then people are like, "Oh, you brought all that stuff?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Do you know the thing?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't have any intent," which is normally the California rule. But since in Las Vegas, you're actually not supposed to travel with lockpicks. Exactly. Going to DEF CON and coming back and like, "What are all these?" I'm like, "It's DEF CON." They're like, "Oh, all right, go through." But yeah, know your laws before getting these things shipped and or having them. Also, I carry around a lot of under the door tools. I have two that I carry with me. One's modified, one's not. The modification just allows for the ability to open crash bars and other kinds of things in the building. But again, knowing what kinds of locks are key. Those kinds of locks, like say on the bathroom door, would work for an under the door tool because it has that little latch that kind of goes around the side, that little pull around. Other latches are just flat. As we found out the last engagement I went, they actually had been under the door tooled, so they made sure that all their latches were just straight. So as soon as you put it on there, it just would slide off. But we found a way, which was basically making a lasso out of a borescope camera and then throwing it over the opening that they had in the entryway for some little thing, then pulling it open and then just doing that. It was pretty unique, but again, that's part of the troubleshooting of this. They're very dynamic, so you can't even determine what's going to be in there until you get foot on the door or into the ground and start walking around and know, oh, this is going to be an interesting night. Some of the things we also do are carry drop boxes. Again, this is one of our drop boxes that we have placed behind a printer. You would barely even notice there. Again, we kind of moved it around just to expose it, but basically this is an all-in-one type of unit. This is a Zima board, one of our modified kind of drop boxes. As soon as we drop it, it does two things. We drop a MiFi in the proximity, so we have basically Wi-Fi access going to the board, but also we'll plug it into the network. So this is where having NAC protections comes into play. If you don't have NAC protections, then basically we have a way to reach this device from our internal SSH, and then we have a full attack suite directly on your network that you would not know because we named it the same as the printer. Key crocs, I have a couple of these. Again, these are inline keyloggers. We place them on your keyboards, and then complete with the MiFi, we can reach them via SSH from our Dropbox, so we have complete reach of these from wherever we are in the world. If you put them smartly, they're easy to get keystrokes from, but also, again, they work fairly well, and also, again, with the MiFi, it allows for complete access from where you are in the world. And then we'll just sit there and watch your keystrokes as you log into your computer and then mistype your keyboard and then hit backspace, 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 and then redo and get the actual keyboard, and then we'll see you log in. OMG cables, we'll drop this around the perimeter. These are kind of expensive, so we use them sparingly, but basically same thing applies. It will allow us to run payloads on the machine. If somebody has it plugged into the machine, we can reach it from anywhere in the world because we will have it plugged in from our Wi-Fi and our MiFi connected in the building, so we won't lose connection to these, and we'll know if they leave the perimeter. If it does, then it will just go ahead and just destroy itself. But again, regardless, these are very keen in having the user kind of just run PowerShell scripts when they don't know that they are because they just walked away. With bash bunnies, we use these normally within the building to just walk around for unlocked computers. We see a computer that's locked, we'll just plug it in, use quick creds, get the NTLM V2 hash, and then take it to our hacking cluster and plug it in overnight, and then get plain text credentials for that user. The cluster we have is about 40 GPUs that are bridged, so it's pretty powerful. Again, it's doing a lot of data computations in like per second, much more than I can even fathom, but basically it's pretty proficient in recovering those NTLM credentials, and we have about 20 years of password dumps, so we have a lot of passwords. And we hunt for the password dumps that are released. So we have something to cross-check in case somebody has those in there. Proxmark, again, that's more along the lines of once we have a key card, if you have no access in the building, you can use these or similar, this guy right here, to roll through HID codes. So you don't have a privileged one, but say you can program it on the standalone mode to just roll through codes, then you just go 578, 579, 578, and then it kind of go beep, 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 beep until you hit the green one, and then you go in the server room. So, again, Wildcard, Flipper Zero, one of my favorite tools. I really don't leave home without it. Yes, thank you. Everybody hopefully brought one. Thank you. Like, I literally don't leave home without this. I'm kind of a nerd, so I like to sniff signals. Like, I will walk around the block, like, seeing if there's anomalous signals. I do it with my HackRF, same kind of thing. I love my HackRF with my Portapack. I recently got the H4M model. It's super, real freaking good. They really did a good upgrade on that one. But I like the HackRF to listen in on any guards that are going by. I also have the local PD. You know, just in case, I want to know if somebody's on the way so we can get out of there. I'd rather not have to pull my letter of authorization and stay around for the cops. There's been several times where it's like, should we wait? No. Let them deal with the alarm. It's their building. I'd rather not have that on my record because, again, I like to work. But again, this thing is glorious because it does all sorts of things. Sub-gigahertz, if you need to plug it into a board, you can do that. It does infrared. It does GPIO. There's really not a lot of things that it doesn't do. Maybe some Bluetooth attacks, but even then you can spam everybody if you have an iPhone. So again, right now I'm using it for, going through slides. So it's fairly useful. Now, once we get in, that slide turns like it should. Basically, we'll go ahead and try to leverage a C2 within the infrastructure. Normally we'll use Cobalt Strike, though Havoc has become one of my quick favorites, and once the rewrite kind of gets out and some of the dev branches kind of merge into the public branches, then everything will be a lot better. But Havoc and Cobalt Strike are kind of our go-tos. Now the malware, we write our own because we like to know A, what it's doing, and B, the underpinnings of it. A lot of obfuscation goes into them. The execution techniques are not direct. We use a lot of indirect execution methods like ghost loading, and we'll rewrite NTDLL and patch AMZ on the fly. Sometimes it will execute through JPEGs. It's just a matter of how we need to cut up the malware in order to do what we needed to do, and the vertical that is going to be utilizing it, and how to kind of blend in with their topography. Now, detection considerations. Again, we don't want to get detected. So we'll use, again, not the straight execution methods. We won't use just the virtual alloc. We won't just use standard memory calls. So we'll basically make sure that these things are well obfuscated and they are not going to be detected by AV or EDR. Now, again, you can stand up a cloud thing, but again, everything we do is domain fronted and full payloads. We don't use staging, and again, with the domain fronting, because everybody trusts Amazon, CloudFront normal will fly right through. So it's one of those considerations where you flip that switch to protect domain fronting, it's going to hurt for a lot until you actually tune it. But again, the underlying underpinnings is using the Azure Gateway system and CloudFront to basically be our callback. So in the end, these things are super dynamic. You don't know what you're going to get. You're going to basically just walk in there with a bunch of this stuff and say, how am I going to utilize this and make smart decisions in my research to make sure that I have what I need to get, where I need to get, and how am I going to achieve my objectives. And then here's kind of an example. So in an engagement, so say we had this lovely little installed guard right here, but there's a flaw because they put the security things on the outside. So it was installed so that strike guard had the installation screws facing outwards. So we didn't have a screwdriver. So think of it like Zelda, or one of those games like, was it Hyrule? Was it? Where you get loot drops and now I have a flashlight. So, we're looking around and we're like, IT room, they have screwdrivers. And luckily they did have screwdrivers. So we went back and we took off the strike plate. But, again, it's not quite, you can't get anything in there. So basically now we have to find a thin piece of something that's rigid enough to be able to push open the door and use the air wedge to kind of create a small gap so we can kind of force it open from the outside and enter these little guys. Those three-ring binder things. So we kind of looked around and we're like, all right, this is flexible, and I think if I push on it, I think if I put some English on it, I can get it. So basically, we just cut a piece of that, put some effort into it, and then the door popped open. I actually thought we popped the door off the frame, but it just was the air wedge like doing its thing and doing the 300 pounds of pressure, and then basically the whole thing popped open and yay, we're in somewhere we really shouldn't be. But it's just a poor decision that caused the whole thing to come down. So again, the goal is be adaptive to what you're doing. Me, again, I look like right now, but when I'm on site, you would not determine that I would be looking like this. You would not see my tattoos. If you have tattoos, I cover them up. I look very professional. I actually just have like bangs down to here. And I cut that hair because I had to go on site and be next to people and be like respectable. And people aren't going to come up to me with tattoos and things and kind of be amicable in that kind of way. But again, that's that human interaction piece that you have to kind of identify and isolate. So again, these aren't a one-time fits all kind of thing. You're going to have to be inventive. You're going to have to basically use everything around you, your eyes, your ears. If there's a tool that you can find, if there's something that you can think, go ahead and try it. But again, it's knowing your locks and kind of pre-planning and understanding that leads to you having a successful engagement in the end, and also making smart decisions on how to engage a target, especially with social engineering. Again, I have FedEx, I have DoorDash, but these are touch and go kind of people. FedEx and DoorDash and Amazon, these are pretexts where the engagement type is determined that this is only going to be a few seconds. It's going to be hands-on, it's going to be close proximity, but it's only going to be for a few seconds. You can't just walk in like an electrician and be like, I'm here to fix the light bulbs. Because I guarantee you, I would love to see somebody try that in Manhattan. Like you would get your, like you would end up in a dumpster and the doorman would just like, if they even told the police that they killed you, it's a joke. So again, be smart with your choices on what you're going to be doing, because again, that's the whole thing, is that you have to understand the pretext of what your character is allotted, just to allow you that amount of time on the thing. So,
Out of time.
Okay, so out of time. If you got questions, I'll be standing around.